Hello, fiber friends. Today, we are going to talk about something that is a strange sounding topic, but I think it's very important if you are a spinner, especially if you are a spinner who is looking for a used spinning wheel. Our topic today is the spinning wheel shaped object. These disappointing objects are floating around out there on eBay and Craigslist, and where I acquired my very own spinning wheel shaped object on Facebook Marketplace. So let's talk about what a spinning wheel shaped object is. While it looks like a spinning wheel, is completely, purely decorative. It does not, has not, and cannot spin yarn. It can't do it. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why these spinning wheel shaped objects cannot spin yarn and what to look for so that you can be sure and avoid any disappointment in your own spinning wheel purchasing journeys. In the 1980s in America, there was a style trend in home decorating where people wanted to have a very country looking home and put country looking things in their home for decoration. And one of those things that kind of caught on to a trend was the spinning wheel. And you could actually purchase non-functioning spinning wheels to go in your living room corner and be decorative. I've seen them draped with plastic ivy, and I mean, it's a choice, but if you don't spin but you like the look of it, there was a company in Canada that is a little notorious at this point for creating the made in Canada spinning wheels. These are the classic spinning wheel shaped objects. They look so much like a spinning wheel. However, they do not have an orifice. You cannot put yarn onto the bobbin. I also believe, I haven't seen one exactly in person, but I also believe that the bobbin and the flyer are one solid piece. They do not separate and they cannot spin independently, which is also another reason why it is a spinning wheel shaped object. The classic made in Canada spinning wheel shaped object appears so often, and it's really sad to see someone who is so excited about learning to spin and they come home and they put a picture of it in a Facebook group and say, how do I start? And everyone says, oh dear, does it say made in Canada on the bottom of it? And they say, why yes it does. And everyone says, so sorry, you can't spin with that. And so I'm making this video in an attempt to educate and hopefully save any of you from a disappointment. I was wandering around on Facebook Marketplace searching for old spinning wheels, as one does, as I do. I definitely do that. And I came across a spinning wheel shaped object. Fortunately, this was clearly listed as a decorative spinning wheel, but it definitely piqued my interest because it was so unusual looking. And here's the very, very, very cool thing. I showed this spinning wheel on one of my previous podcasts that you could go rewatch if you're interested. But I showed this spinning wheel and someone said, oh, that looks just like a Tyrolean spinning wheel. However, with this one, I'm truly unclear about what the intention of this wheel was. So let me show you why. Let me show you some of the interesting things I've noticed about this wheel. And let's talk about what you can look out for if you're shopping for your own antique wheel that functions. Number one, we can look at the finish and see that it's got some patchiness, which would be pretty normal for an older wheel, but generally wheels would be finished then assembled, and you can see that underneath the mother of all, the finish is missing. It's as if this wheel was assembled and then whatever this stain or finish is was applied. Another thing about this wheel is that it's very light. I'm fairly certain it's made from pine, and most older wheels would be made of hardwood and would therefore be much heavier than this wheel is. The base of this wheel very strongly reminds me of a shipping pallet, and I am still wondering if that's where the base of this wheel actually originally came from. Somebody took apart a shipping pallet. But the framing of it is very similar to the Tyrolean wheels that I was able to locate and find pictures of online. I have a Pinterest board of Tyrolean spinning wheels, if you'd like to go check out my Pinterest board. I also found, and I will put a link to this in the description below, a YouTube video from 2010 of someone actually spinning on a real wheel of this style, so you can see what it actually would look like. All right, let's take a look at the Footman. While this does sort of remind me of a yardstick, the actual wheels did have some kind of a bearing inside this area. You can't oil or lubricate this how it is. So that would be something to look for. Make sure that there is a way to lubricate or oil the wheel so that it can function smoothly. This wheel itself just seems very odd to me, and because of this big hub thing on here, it kind of reminds me of a wooden cart or some sort of decorative little planter with wheels on it. Again, sort of hearkening back to that country look that was very popular in the 80s. Another way to know if you have a spinning wheel shaped object is the lack of ability to tension the wheel. This wheel does have a tensioning system, although it's incredibly loose. Nothing's actually holding this down other than this screw here. And it makes a terrible sound, so I'll stop turning it. Which brings us to the flyer. Now, I thought perhaps all the hooks had fallen out, and there's just this one here, and I was very confused by this until my research into Tyrolean spinning wheels informed me that this is actually the way they were done. They had one hook that was moved from hole to hole up and down the arms of the flyer. So rather than moving the working yarn from hook to hook, the hook itself was moved from hole to hole. So that kind of just made me aware that sometimes I might make an assumption about how things should work, and a little research can show me that there's more than one way to hook your yarn. The flyer was also something that I thought, this looks like a wood shop to me, because it looks like this is a flat board of wood that was just cut and then sort of stuck into this to create the flyer. And then another subscriber of mine came to the rescue and showed me that she has an actual wheel with this style of flyer. Here are some pictures. So isn't that amazing? As I mentioned before about the spinning wheel shaped objects, you always want to make sure that the flyer and the bobbin can spin independently. If they cannot, then you do not have a wheel that could function. This one does have a separate bobbin, which is nice. And then you need to have some way to tension either the bobbin or the flyer, or have a whirl to create a double drive system. And this does not have any of those things. There is no way to separately tension the flyer, so there wouldn't be any take-up, which there also wouldn't be any take-up because while it looks like there's an orifice here, there's no hole here for the yarn to go in and onto the bobbin. There's no way to get the yarn out the orifice. So that's definitely a reason why this is a spinning wheel shaped object. And then there's this interesting little key right here. If we take this out, the whole top of the maiden flips down, which is very odd. And there's, of course, wood on wood here, which, you know, I kind of learned that that was possibly a way to start a spark for a fire with some kindling. But yeah, so there's no way to lubricate this section of the wheel. So sadly, this is most definitely a spinning wheel shaped object. However, I think it's possible because of the design of this, because of a few features that it has and almost has, it could be a fun challenge to see if I can hack this wheel and get it to spin. I think that would be an exciting challenge. So look for an upcoming video about getting this poor, almost finished but not quite there wheel completed so that it can actually spin. Here are a couple tips for you to avoid any disappointments if you are looking for a used or antique spinning wheel online. Number 1, familiarize yourself with the parts of the spinning wheel and make sure that you know which things could be replaced and which things are very difficult to replace. For instance, a Footman versus a flyer. Number 2, make sure, especially if it's an old wheel, an antique wheel, that you try the wheel before you bring it home. A lot of people are not spinners but have come across a wheel and they think that just because the drive wheel turns, it works. It's a working spinning wheel. And as you can see, there's so much more to it. So make sure that you put just a piece of scrap yarn onto the wheel. Make sure that you string the drive band around and make sure that everything that turns can turn. Of course, check for any maker's marks, and if it says made in Canada, run. Finally, there are so many groups of helpful spinners out there who will help you identify if a wheel is working or not. Use their wisdom to your benefit. Post pictures. The things that you absolutely want to have a picture of are the flyer, the orifice, the hub of the drive wheel, and the treadle. Make sure you get as many up close and detailed pictures as you can. And if this is something sold online and you haven't gone to see it in person, ask the seller to take more clarifying pictures for you. It will save you both time in the end. Generally, I don't recommend starting with an antique wheel if you are a brand new spinner. Unless you are extraordinarily intrepid and very mechanically minded, I would recommend going with, at the very least, a used but modern wheel. I will have a video coming up about how to choose a spinning wheel if you can't go try it in person and how to find the right spinning wheel for you. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy spinning!